We're on the third one. You get the gist by now. Ben 10 Aliens as RWBY characters, Part 3, let's go.
Starting with one of my top 10. ChamAlien. Very underrated. Shame Cartoon Network decided to tell the show about turning into aliens to stop introducing aliens for some reason, especially since that shouldn't apply to aliens that already existed, and it snubbed him of being an omniverse. But that's fine, because we can give him some limelight here as ChamAlien. As expected, Cameron is a chameleon faunus, much like Ilya Amatola, so his faunus trait covers the main camouflage power ChamAlien has. So what does that leave for his weapon and semblance? Well, I had considered just not giving him a semblance and giving him a helmet that has wide-spectrum lenses, which is what Derek J. Wyatt posed for ChamAlien to have to justify the multicolored eyes, instead of just saying the alien happens to be an exception to the green eyes rule like Heat Blast. As you can probably tell by the way I said that, I don't like the helmet idea. I prefer those just being ChamAlien's eyes, hence Cameron having heterochromia to resemble ChamAlien's outermost eyes. Instead, I took the strap of the helmet and flipped it around onto the top of his head, and it's a set of headphones called Silent Listener, allowing him to discreetly tap into radio frequencies. It's less a weapon and more a utility, but it certainly helps. I did consider some form of poisoning weapon as a reference to ChamAlien's stinger tail, but we never actually saw what the stinger does, so I decided to just leave that alone. Thinking about it, the fact he's a chameleon faunus that can change his appearance at will, but also has heterochromia and a weapon featuring a word meaning quiet, he's kind of a mix between Ilya and Neo. His semblance covers the wide-spectrum viewing thing, allowing him to see into different parts of the light spectrum beyond the normal visible light portion that would otherwise be a very, very small segment of it. He's kind of an ultimate stealth machine, able to tap into the conversations of his opponents, blend in with his surroundings to hide himself, and then also see across the light spectrum to pinpoint where others are hiding. Not to mention he's just able to see in the dark anyway without using his semblance, because he's a faunus. Good luck sneaking up on him. His outfit is meant to allude to the retroactively made Omniverse design for ChamAlien that Derek made a few years ago. His gloves sticking off of him the way they do is also meant to be a very loose nod to Subdora, and I use the phrase very loose because yes, I had Subdora's gloves in mind, but they don't look much like them in the final product. His hair being done in a ponytail alludes to the spike on the back of ChamAlien's head, and since I couldn't just give him a third eye, I decided ChamAlien's center eye would instead be referenced via the streak of green in his hair, something that's naturally occurring akin to the pink in Ren's hair. The patterns his chameleon skin displays are meant to emulate how they appear in ChamAlien as well, and as a bonus, have some recolors. One where his skin color is changed to be that of his alien self, and then 2 albedo variants. I don't really have much of an idea in way of lore on this one. I'm feeling the vibe of Veil, though. It's the most quote-unquote neutral kingdom of the 4, so someone as low-key as Cameron just originating from and hanging out there makes sense. Maybe he's had some troubled youth, using his abilities for less than ideal goals, before deciding to attend one of the academies, just to add in a tie to Prisoner 775. Cameron is thought to have Gaelic origins, either Camsran, meaning crooked nose, or Camaban, meaning crooked river. Let's go with the river one to have an easy color tie-in. Blue. Allen is a variation of Macallan, with 2 potential origin points. The Irish and Scottish Gaelic Ailin, which means little rock, and harmony, or the Celtic Aluin, meaning handsome. Little rock is a good one. Rocks have various colors. Harmony, for me, has purple as an associated color, though I suppose white could work as well. Handsome I'm not as sure on, that's even more subjective somehow. So I'll stick with the little rock meaning and associated with grays and whites and blacks. I know I gave AmpFibian some playful flack before, but it's all in good fun. Really, if there's an electric alien I have it out for, it's Shock Squatch. AmpFibian is genuinely a fun addition to the show, and the idea of turning him into a remnant character just as much. So, this is AmpFibian. Anne is a jellyfish faunus, with tentacles sprouting off of her torso, which you can see trailing out from the bottoms of her coat. As you can expect, similar to Tyrion's scorpion tail, Anne's jellyfish tentacles have a toxin as well, which actually separates her a bit from AmpFibian since he plays off of the cartoon electric jellyfish trope, and doesn't actually have the real-life toxins jellyfish have. But to play into Amphibian's tentacle arms and electric powers, I gave her these 2 lightning whips that wrap around her arms, acting as a combination of Ilya's lightning lash and Generator X's blast caster. Anne's semblance is called neural perusing. We never actually got to see Ben use this power, but Rad, Amphibian's DNA donor, explained that he can read minds by sensing the electrical pulses in the brains of others. So that's what Anne does. She has a mind-reading semblance, doing so in pretty much the exact same way Amphibian would if Ben ever bothered to master his actually good aliens instead of focusing on his boring, punchy guys. Anne's code is meant to emulate the design of Amphibian's body, more specifically the way he looks in Omniverse with the sharper edges. And for fun, here's a haywire recolor, swapping colors with Ultimate Humungousaur. Lore. Lore, 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 lore. Menagerie? Since she's a jellyfish, she can breathe underwater, and Menagerie has whole bits of its marketplace in the waters, helping and taking advantage of different fauna traits and the limited space at Menagerie. It would also have her be a bit more disconnected from the rest of the world at first, which can act as a parallel to how Amphibian is one of the aliens from the Andromeda Galaxy, where most other transformations come from the Milky Way. Anne has the same origins as Nancy, Hebrew Hannah meaning grace and French belle meaning beautiful, and again, I associate grace with gold. Vivian is a gender-neutral name, of Latin origin, meaning lively, and it derives from Vivianus, meaning alive. Greens, maybe, since plants are so associated with life, or blue since water, as far as we know, is necessary for life. Or maybe red for high energy and way of lively. Also, the name is a nod to how the Ben 10 writing crew behind the scenes refer to Amphibian as Aunt Vivian. Another Andromeda alien, and another of my top 10. I've always loved energy, even when it was just the design and name we had to go off of. The furnace-looking aesthetic is fun, and the fact he was the first instance of a radioactive alien only increased my intrigue, and he's kept his top 10 place ever since. Now I know what you're thinking. How the hell is NRG going to turn into a human name? Well, I have that answer. Say hello to Ennard Gene. Ennard's semblance is Nuclear Reactor Generator, or NRG for short. He doesn't have much control over it, pretty much constantly generating radiation from his body. That's where his weapon comes in. If you can call it a weapon. The containment suit he wears mitigates the amount of radiation that actually reaches others, still allowing him to conduct heat through the metal, but also the 3 grill holes allow him to actually use his powers more offensively, much like Energy himself. Ennard's containment suit just looks like a slimmed down and slightly reshaped version of Energy's Omniverse containment suit, the humanoid element causing him to resemble Leander a little bit. I also went with the colors of Mad Ben's Energy because they fit better with the vacuo setting his lore will take place in later on. As for what he looks like under the suit, here you go. Energy doesn't really have a head shape or design where hair can be mimicked to look like it, so I made Ennard bald, but his eyebrows are spiky like those of Energy's in his Omniverse design. The suit is meant to mimic the general aesthetic of Energy's inner containment suit, but without being so revealing, and again, Mad Ben colors. But for those who would want it, here are the versions that have Ben Prime's colors, as well as one based on the Haywire toy where he swaps colors with Ultimate Echo Echo. I imagine the containment suit is difficult for him to get out of, but can still be done on his own. That way, it's not the extreme of Omniverse just giving him a trash can lid handle to do it with, but also not so difficult as the Tatanite piercing needed to let Pandor escape. Like I said, Ennard is from Vacuo. Much like how Frank's origin was a situation where he needed his semblance to be mitigated, but options were limited, Ennard has a similar thing. The containment suit was what the nearby Vacuans came up with, using resources from abandoned Atlas buildings still in existence from when the Northern Kingdom invaded and stole their natural resources. I imagine Ennard is reasonably, incredibly unhappy with his situation. He probably views his suit in the same way Pandor did. A prison. It's difficult to move. It's difficult to eat. He wants out, but he knows that without proper control of his semblance, he's a danger. I actually like the idea that Ennard hasn't actually attended any schools, and drifts about as a lone hermit, not even a part of one of the nomadic tribes of Vacuo, just hoping he can find solace somewhere. Ennard is of course the name of the FNAF character, and I did find a few websites saying it's an actual name, but as far as I can tell, it's mainly just this dude. As such, it's a play on Ennard, referring to internal organs, so a bunch of pinks and reds, or gray if you want to talk about the brain. Gene is of Greek origin, coming from Eugene or Eugenia, which in turn come from Eugenios, the definitions being well-born or noble. So, royalty colors, I guess. Purples, whites, reds. From a bunch of aliens I like, to one I don't. Of the Alien Force 10, Humungousaur is one of the ones not explicitly meant to combine concepts and powers of previous aliens the way that, say, Swampfire does Wildvine and Heat Blast. But unlike the others, like Spider Monkey or Chromastone, no, his Diamond Head connection doesn't count because that clearly wasn't always the plan, Humungousaur doesn't benefit from it. He was just made because the crew thought that having a strong guy would be neat. They were wrong, mind you, he's very boring, he's not neat at all. But we're gonna try to make him neat, by making him a character instead of just an avatar through which Ben can punch things. And that character's name is Hugh Montgomery. Humungousaur being my least favorite of the aliens I used here is ironic, given that this is probably my favorite design of the whole video. There are a few small details I want to go back and adjust at some point, some proportion and perspective stuff, as well as making the mace look a little bit more interesting, but even then, I really like how this turned out. Also, yes, after doing 3 Ultimate Alien transformations, I did intentionally choose one not from Ultimate Alien to finish the lineup. For one, it adds a little bit of diversity. For another, I know a ton of people will be marginally annoyed that not all of them are Ultimate Alien, even though 3 of the 4 are, and I think that's kind of funny. I don't actually know if Faunus can have dinosaur traits. They don't have anything mythological, but we've never seen any extinct features either. I know this is fan stuff, I could just change the rules, but I only want to do it a little bit if I have to. So, I'm saying that they can have dinosaur traits in this series because dinosaurs are real animals. So, Hugh is a Stegosaurus faunus, his trait being the dorsal plates of a Stegosaurus, to allude to the spikes seen on Humungousaur, whether his full-size form in the UAF era or just what he has by default in the reboot continuity. His hair is also stylized to look like the one seen on his head, and his mustache is a nod to Humungousaur. I guess also the fact that I used a slimmer but still muscular model instead of a broader, more muscular model could tie into the slimmer Humungousaur concept art we recently got, but I wasn't really thinking of that, so that's pretty retroactive. Back to the full size thing, that's Hugh's semblance. Opposite Nancy's ability to shrink, Hugh can grow in size to increase his strength and durability for a short time. He also can create the illusion of doing so, manifesting an aura projection of himself that's much larger in order to ward off enemies. It's kind of a nod to a theory I made years and years ago that Humungousaur's size alteration was just him trying to make himself look bigger as a defense mechanism rather than actually getting bigger. It was a dumb theory, it's outright incorrect, and it takes away the one unique thing Humungousaur had. But I think applying it to Hugh makes the power it's had more interesting, while also just acting as a little fun meta joke. Hugh has 2 weapons. One is the mace in his hand, which references the tail of both Reboot Humungousaur, which it's modeled after, and Ultimate Humungousaur. It even further references the Reboot as it has lightning dust, allowing him to land shocking melee blows with it. His other weapon is the pair of spiked knuckles on his wrists. With the use of fire and combustion dust, Hugh can launch the spikes as small explosive projectiles, alluding to Ultimate Humungousaur's missile hands. I will admit though, the knuckles were basically an afterthought. I had originally planned on the spikes of the mace firing off like missiles, but I figured the knuckles would work better. If when I revisit this design, I'll probably redesign them to still be sort of brass knuckle type things, but maybe attach to gauntlets akin to Ember Celica. His outfit is meant to allude to both Humungousaur's Omniverse outfit, as well as the outfits worn by Vexasaurians in the reboot continuity. The colors come from Ultimate Humungousaur, and I did both an Albedo and Ben 23 variant to reference Negative Humungousaur and Alanomaly, as well as a Haywire version. I had considered giving him some tooth necklace or something to reference Humungousaur, but it slipped my mind when I was finalizing the rest of the design. Maybe a future iteration will include it. I think as far as present day goes, Hugh probably lives in Vacuo, but I think he originates from Menagerie. The vibe of Menagerie, especially the more forested parts, is very similar to that of Terradino as depicted in Vilgax Attacks. But Menagerie is, well, Menagerie. There's not much room. Kuakuana is the only civilization that we know of on the island, and the desert that makes up most of it is far too inhospitable. That, paired with wanting to be a huntsman, Hugh would have left at some point, and Vacuo fits the best. He's definitely been out of the school system for a while, though. He's among the older characters in this series. Somewhere along the lines of Goddard, I imagine. I got a bit punny here. I could have easily said Hugh as a reference to the Vaxasaurian character of the same name. I found that it has origins meaning mind or spirit, which could reflect whites, pinks, and purples, and then I could have turned it into a humongous joke. But changing it from Hugh to Hugh means it fits all colors, all hues. Montgomery finds its origins in Normandy, with many variations tying into Gumeric, or some variation of it. Gumeric breaks down into Gumo, meaning man, and Rix, meaning ruler. So, royalty colors. Again. Doing preemptive research on the names I've chosen, royalty colors is a common theme. I guess one of the dinosaur aliens having a royalty name makes sense. The most iconic dinosaur has a name meaning tyrant lizard, even though Humungousaur is a stegosaurus and we don't actually have a T-Rex alien. But what we do have is another completed video. Another success, I might go as far as to say. It's been pretty difficult finding the right balance between the original alien and what I do here, but I think characters like Anne and Hugh come out the most successful in how they're done. What about you? Agree? Disagree? Any aliens you want for the next part? What about ones you want to see redone from either this or previous videos? Do let me know. And until next time, do all that YouTube algorithm stuff. Liking, commenting, subscribing. And I will see you when I see you.
If I bleed